The dawn mist clung to Adi like a secret 2 weeks after the river duel. Ongyu worked the forge bellows, watching his father shape an axe head. The rhythm was familiar, comforting. Pump and strike, breath and hammer. Outside, the village stirred to life between its 2 rivers. Sacred Iduko to the east, patient Iria to the west. "You're distracted," Agio observed without looking up. "No, father. The metal knows when you're not present. So do I." Agio plunged the glowing iron into water. Steam hissed. "You're thinking about the butcher's son." Ongyu said nothing, which was answer enough. Buba had vanished from village life like smoke after fire. He worked silently in his father's butchery, head down, avoiding eyes. The paths he once strutted, he now avoided. The boys who once followed him had drifted away, filling the space his pride had occupied with mockery and whispers. Ongyu had seen him only twice in 2 weeks, both times from a distance. Both times Buba had turned and walked the other direction. "A man defeated can become enemy or brother," Agio said, examining the cooled metal. "The choosing isn't always his alone." Before Ongyu could respond, a Gumenu burst through the forge entrance, breathing hard. "Ongyu, come quickly. Manu Idi has fallen ill." The crowd gathered in Manu Idi's compound was silent with worry. The old elder lay on woven mats, skin gray as ash, breathing shallow. The village healer, a woman named Shuuva, knelt beside him, pressing her fingers to his neck, his forehead, muttering words only she understood. Ongyu and Agumenu pushed through to the front. Mama Amakai stood nearby, hands clasped, lips moving in silent prayer. "How long has he been like this?" the Aku asked. Agumenu's father, the village chief, was a tall man with authority in every gesture. "Since yesterday evening," Shuuva replied. "Fever came fast, like fire in dry grass. He speaks to people not present. The ancestors are calling him. Can you help him?" Mama Amakai's voice cracked. Shuuva was quiet for a long moment. "There are herbs, Duruka root and Bampwa leaves. Together, they can pull fever from the blood, bring clarity back to clouded minds. But what? They grow only in Iduko Forest, deep, near the crocodile pools where the mystic guardians sleep. A collective intake of breath. Iduko was sacred ground, forbidden except for the most necessary reasons. And the crocodile pools, where the ancient beasts emerged to greet new Akus at coronation. Those were places even priests approached with trembling hands. "How many would need to go?" the Aku asked. 3. Shuuva held up gnarled fingers. 1 to lead and navigate. The forest confuses those who enter without wisdom. 1 to identify and gather the herbs precisely. Too much or too little, and the medicine becomes poison or induces the forest's wrath. 1 to protect. Iduko does not welcome visitors. It tests them. The Aku surveyed the gathered crowd. His eyes settled on his son. Agumenu. Agumenu stepped forward without hesitation. "I'll go, father." Manu Idi spoke wisdom to this village for 60 seasons. "I'll speak life back into him." Pride flickered across the Aku's face. Then his gaze found Ongyu. "And you, forge boy, will you go?" Ongyu felt every eye turn to him. He thought of Manu Idi's words after the duel. "You dealt with a problem without becoming what you despised." The old man had defended him when he didn't have to. "I'll go," Ongyu said firmly. 2 is not 3, Shuuva said. "The forest requires 3, or it accepts none." Silence stretched. Men shuffled feet, looked away. Iduko Forest was not a place for casual courage. Then, from the back of the crowd, a voice rough as unworked stone. "I'll go." Heads turned. The crowd parted. Buba stepped forward. He looked different, leaner somehow, as if the past 2 weeks had carved something away. His eyes, once bright with arrogance, now carried something harder to name. Shame, perhaps, or determination born from it. His father, Atanji the butcher, grabbed his arm. "Boy, what are you?" Manu Idi said I could learn wisdom or waste strength. Buba's voice was steady. "I choose to learn. If the forest kills me." He shrugged. Pride already did. Murmurs rippled through the gathering. Ongyu stared. Agumanu's eyebrows rose. The Aku studied Buba for a long moment, weighing, judging. Finally, he nodded. Then let it be these three. The forest will test you. The ancestors will judge you. Return with the herbs, or don't return at all. The preparation took the rest of the day. The village priest, Atondo, ancient and weathered, blind in one eye, performed cleansing rituals. He marked each young man's forehead with white chalk, fingers tracing symbols older than Adi itself. This marks you as seekers, not thieves, he intoned. The spirits will know your purpose. Honor them and they may permit passage. Dishonor them. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. Offerings were prepared. Kola nuts wrapped in fresh leaves, palm wine in clay vessels, words of supplication written in no language but spoken from the heart. Elders gathered to give warnings. Do not stray from the path. The forest has paths within paths, and most lead nowhere. Take only what you need. Greed is the fastest poison in Iduko. If the crocodiles emerge, show respect. They are older than memory, witnesses to covenants between earth and sky. Trust each other. This from Mama Amakai, looking directly at all three. The forest will try to divide you. It feeds on discord. 3 strands woven together don't break easily, but separated. She shook her head. The 3 young men stood apart during the preparations, the air between them thick with unspoken things. Agumanu tried to bridge the gap. We need to work together. I know how to follow orders, Buba said, looking away. This isn't about orders, Ongyu replied. It's about trust. Buba's jaw tightened. You want me to trust the one who humiliated me in front of the entire village? I want you to trust the one trying to save an elder's life. Ongyu's voice was steady, controlled. Your pride can wait. Buba's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, the old rage flickered. Then he exhaled slowly, turned away. Fine. Let's just get this done. Not agreement, not friendship, but not refusal either. They gathered supplies. Machetes for clearing undergrowth, woven bags for herbs, gourds of water, bundles of dried reeds wrapped in oilcloth for torches. Ongyu brought a small clay pot with fire coals from the forge. His responsibility, his expertise. As the sun touched the western hills, they set out. The edge of Iduko Forest appeared like a wall of green shadow. Ancient trees towered, their canopy so thick that twilight reigned even at midday. The air changed at the boundary, cooler, heavier, alive with whispers that might have been wind or might have been something ancient. Atondo poured palm wine onto the earth at the forest's edge. We send these 3 in good faith with pure purpose. Grant them passage. Grant them wisdom. Grant them return. The forest offered no answer. It simply waited. Agumanu entered first, as was proper for the chief's son. Ongyu followed. Buba came last, machete already in hand. The sounds of Adi village faded behind them as if swallowed. New sounds emerged. Strange bird calls, rustling in undergrowth, the distant rush of water over stones. The path was narrow, barely visible, marked only by stones placed by those who'd walked it before. Priests, hunters with permission, seekers like themselves. They walked in silence for an hour. Then, too, the forest grew darker, denser. Vines hung like ropes. Roots rose from the earth like grasping fingers. Buba broke the silence. How far to the crocodile pools? Far enough, Agumanu replied. We'll camp tonight, continue at dawn. We should keep moving, Buba argued. Manu Idi doesn't have time for. We walk blind in darkness. We die stupid in darkness, Ongyu interrupted. Then Manu Idi dies anyway. Patience. Buba bit back a retort. Continued walking. The path split ahead 3 directions, each equally dark, each equally uninviting. They stopped, stared. Which way? Buba asked. The widest one? Buba said immediately, pointing right. We can move faster, defend ourselves easier if. The narrowest one, Ongyu countered, pointing left. Less traveled means more sacred. The herbs grow in protected places. You're both guessing, Agumanu said quietly. He knelt, examining the ground at each path's entrance. Touched the soil, smelled it. Then he noticed something at the base of the center path. Kola nuts, old and weathered, placed deliberately in a small pile. Offerings, he said. Others have walked this way before and honored the spirits. This is the path. You're guessing too, Buba muttered.
No, agumanus tud. I'm listening.
He took the center path. After a moment, Ongyu followed. Buba hesitated, then came after, grumbling under his breath. The path proved correct. It led them deeper, toward the sound of rushing water, the sacred Iduko River, from which the forest took its name. By the time darkness fell completely, they'd made good progress. They made camp in a small clearing. Ongyu coaxed fire from his clay pot, building it carefully until flames danced against the encroaching shadows. They ate dried fish and cassava cake in silence, each lost in thought. Tomorrow, Agumanu said finally, we reach the pools. If we survive the night, Buba added darkly. Ongyu said nothing, staring into the flames, thinking of his father's words. The metal knows when you're not present. He needed to be present now. Completely. This forest demanded it. They took turns keeping watch. Buba volunteered for first shift. Ongyu took second. Agumanu would take them to dawn. But none of them slept easily. The forest was too alive, too watchful. Eyes seemed to gleam from the darkness beyond firelight. Shapes moved that might have been branches or might have been something else entirely. When Ongyu's watch ended, he woke Agumanu, then lay down. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of crocodiles with human eyes and trees that whispered his mother's name. Dawn broke, gray and misty. They ate sparingly, drank carefully. Water was precious, as they didn't know what springs in Iduko might be safe. Then they continued, following the sound of the river. The forest changed as they went deeper. The trees grew more massive, their roots like walls. Flowers bloomed in impossible colors, blues too bright, reds too dark. Birds with plumage that seemed to shimmer watched them pass with unnerving intelligence. By midday they reached the ravine. It appeared suddenly, the earth simply ending, dropping away into a gorge perhaps 30 feet deep. At the bottom, a tributary of the sacred Iduko rushed over rocks, white with foam. A fallen tree bridged the gap. Ancient, thick as a man's body, but slick with moss and clearly unstable. We cross here, Agumanu said, though his voice carried doubt. That log won't hold all three of us at once, Buba observed. One at a time, then. Ongyu stepped forward. I'll go first. Test it. He started across slowly, carefully. The clay pot with fire coals clutched against his chest. The log was slippery, treacherous. Halfway across, it shifted. Ongyu's foot slipped. He caught himself, arms windmilling. But the clay pot flew from his grasp, tumbled through the air, seeming to fall in slow motion. Then it shattered on the rocks below. The precious fire coals scattered, hissing as the river claimed them. Ongyu stared in horror. Without fire, they couldn't see in darkness. Couldn't signal if lost. Couldn't move, Buba shouted. Ongyu scrambled the rest of the way across, legs shaking. He collapsed on the far side, breathing hard, shame burning hotter than any forge. I'm sorry, he called back. I'm so sorry. It's done, Agumanu called. We adapt. But Buba was already moving. He unpacked rope from his bag, tied one end around his waist. Then, without a word, he started across the unstable log. It shifted under his weight, more dramatically than it had for Ongyu. But Buba had balance born from hauling carcasses, from moving through butchery floors slick with blood. He adjusted, compensated, kept moving. He reached the other side, secured the rope around a thick tree trunk, then tested it. The rope held. He went back across, now with the security line, and gestured for Agumanu. The chief's son crossed carefully, using the rope for balance. Then Buba came across a final time, untied himself, coiled the rope. He looked at Ongyu, face unreadable. You've done well, Ongyu said quietly. We need you to identify the herbs, Buba replied. Can't do that if you're dead at the bottom of a ravine. Not warm. Not hostile. Something in between, functional respect, perhaps. A crack in the wall. Angyu stood, brushed himself off. The fire, I can remake it. I need dry moss, vines for friction, time. Then we make time, Agumanu said firmly. Angyu gathered materials while the other two stood guard. His hands moved with forge-trained certainty. Preparing the moss tinder, creating a friction bow from vine and wood, applying steady pressure and rhythm until smoke appeared, then a spark, then a tiny flame that he nursed like a newborn. Took a quarter hour. But fire emerged. Booba watched the entire process, grudging admiration in his eyes. You really do know fire. The forge teaches many things, Angyu replied, carefully transferring the new flame to a torch bundle. Patience. Precision. That fire without control is just destruction. Their eyes met. Understanding flickered, unspoken but present. Night fell faster than expected as they continued deeper into Iduko. They made camp near where the path began to descend toward lower ground. Toward the crocodile pools, though they couldn't see them yet. Only smell them. Water and ancient mud, growth and decay intermingled. Angyu built the fire. Agumanu prepared a simple meal. Booba stood watch at the clearing's edge, alert to every sound. The forest's night sounds intensified. Hoots and calls, rustlings and whispers. But one sound stood apart. Heavy breathing. In the crack of underbrush, something large circling their camp. Booba tensed. Something's out there. How big? Agumanu asked, rising. Big. The breathing grew closer, louder. Then eyes caught the firelight. Small, maddened, reflecting orange. A massive bush pig burst from the undergrowth. It was enormous, easily the size of two full-grown goats, tusks like curved knives. And protruding from its shoulder, half broken, was a hunter's spear. Blood matted its fur. The wound had festered, driven it mad with pain and rage. It saw them, lowered its head, charged. Booba grabbed a burning branch from the fire, roared, and charged to meet it.
Booba, no!
Angyu shouted. But Booba was already committed, already swinging the flaming brand. The pig veered but didn't flee, too crazed, too pain-blind. Circled, snorting, preparing another charge. Booba, don't fight it, Angyu yelled, mind racing. He saw the clearing's layout, saw the thorns to Booba's left, saw the possibility. Lead it. Drive it toward the thorns. Booba hesitated. Taking orders from Angyu still tasted like ash. Do it, Agumanu commanded, chief son authority in his voice. Booba moved, not retreating but angling, using the flaming branch to push the pig's direction. The beast charged again. Booba shifted, dodging, dangerously timed, swept the flames across its path, drove it left. The pig crashed into the thorn thicket. It squealed, thrashed, became more entangled. The thorns were thick, sharp, centuries old. The more the pig struggled, the more trapped it became. Its movements slowed, weakened. Blood loss and pain finally overcoming rage. Angyu approached carefully, Agumanu behind him with a spear ready. Up close he saw the wound clearly, infected, oozing, days old. It's suffering, Angyu said quietly. We end this with mercy. Booba stepped forward, machete in hand. He looked at the dying beast, saw himself, perhaps, in its maddened pride, its painful fall. I'm sorry, he whispered, then delivered a single, swift strike to the base of the skull. The pig went still. Silence settled over the clearing. 3 young men breathing hard, adrenaline's influence declining. Booba cleaned his machete, hands shaking slightly. He sat heavily by the fire, staring into the flames. You could have let it kill me, he said without looking at Angyu. Solved your problem. You're not my problem, Booba, Angyu replied, sitting across the fire. You never were. At the river, Booba began. At the river you made a choice. I made mine. Angyu cut him off. That's finished. Long silence. The fire crackled. The forest whispered. I was wrong, Booba said finally. About you. About everything. I know. Booba looked up, surprised. But saying it matters, Ongyu continued. To you, maybe more than to me. Their eyes met across the flames. For the first time since the duel, they truly saw each other. Not as enemy and victor, not as bully and target, but as two young men carrying their own burdens, their own pain, their own potential. I'm sorry, Booba said, for all of it. The festival, the river, everything before. Ongyu nodded slowly. I forgive you. 2 words. Simple. But the weight that lifted from Booba's shoulders was visible. Agumanu, who'd been silent, smiled. Good. Because tomorrow we face the crocodiles, and I'd rather do that with brothers than enemies. Brothers, Booba repeated, testing the word. If you'll have us, Ongyu said. Booba's answer was a smile, small, uncertain, but genuine. I'd like that. They shared the last of their food, talked quietly about small things, laughed once or twice. When they settled to sleep, the air between them had changed. No longer thick with resentment, but lightened with possibility. The forest seemed to approve. The strange sounds lessened. The watching eyes withdrew. 3 strands beginning to weave together. Dawn broke with mist so thick it seemed the world had dissolved into white nothingness. They packed quickly, efficiently, a rhythm developing between them. Booba checked weapons. Ongyu tended the fire. Agumanu studied the path ahead, noting landmarks, memorizing the way back. The pools are close, Agumanu said. I can smell them. They were right. Within an hour, the forest opened onto a clearing unlike anything they had ever seen. The crocodile pools. 3 bodies of water perfectly circular, arranged in a triangle. The water was impossibly still, mirror-smooth, reflecting the canopy above. Mist rose from the surfaces like breath. And at the water's edge, Duruku grew in small clusters, leaves dark green and glossy. But it was the bampwa leaves they needed most. Floating on the water's surface near the center of the pools, broad and silver-veined, unmistakable. And surrounding the pools, basking on the muddy banks, were 3 crocodiles. They were enormous, ancient. Their scales carried the patina of centuries, scarred and weathered. Eyes like amber stones watched the young men with intelligence that seemed more than animal. These must be the mystic crocodiles, the ones that emerged at coronations, that carried the covenant between Aku and ancestors, that existed in the space between earth and spirit. Gods of my fathers, Booba whispered, as he set eyes on one of the crocodiles. The largest, as long as 2 fishing canoes placed end to end, opened its mouth slowly. Rows of teeth like daggers caught the filtered sunlight. Then it closed its mouth with a snap that echoed across the clearing. A warning, or greeting, impossible to know. We need the leaves from the water, Ongyu said quietly, and the roots from the shores. Someone has to go in, Agumanu observed. I'll do it, Booba volunteered immediately. I'm the strongest. If they attack, strength won't matter, Ongyu interrupted. We do this together. All 3. Show respect. Take only what we need, offer thanks. And if they decide respect isn't enough? Booba asked. Then we face it together, Agumanu said firmly. That's what Manu Idi would say. That's what brothers do. The word brothers settled over them like a blessing. They approached the nearest pool slowly. Ongyu carried the woven gathering bag. Agumanu held a gourd of palm and kola nuts for offerings. Booba positioned himself between them and the crocodiles. Not threatening, not challenging, just present. A living shield if needed. The crocodiles watched. Didn't move. Barely blinked. Agumanu spoke prayers his father had taught him. Words for approaching sacred spaces. We come not as thieves but as seekers. We seek only to heal, to save a life, to honor the wisdom you guard. Grant us passage. Grant us your treasures. They waded in. The water was cold, shockingly so. It rose to their knees, then thighs. The bottom was soft mud that tried to claim their feet with each step. Ongyu reached the bampwa leaves, began gathering them carefully. Shuei's voice echoed in memory. Too much or too little, and the medicine becomes poison. He counted precisely 7 leaves, no more, no less. Behind him, Agumanu gathered Duruku root from the shore, digging gently, apologizing to the earth for the disturbance. And Buba stood watch, every muscle tense, eyes locked on the crocodiles. The largest one slid into the water. Heart stopped. It moved beneath the surface, a shadow shape gliding with terrible grace. It circled once, twice, came close enough that Buba could see its scales clearly, close as the full length of a canoe would reach. But he didn't move, didn't raise his weapon, just stood, breathing carefully, showing no threat. The crocodile surfaced, water streamed from its ancient scales. Its amber eyes studied them, judged them, perhaps, found them acceptable. It sank again, returned to the bank, settled back into basking position. Got them? Ongyu whispered, voice shaking. All 7 leaves. Roots too, Agumanu confirmed. They backed out slowly, reverently, leaving their offerings on the bank. Cola nuts, palm wine, and words of gratitude spoken from the heart, promises to honor what had been given. The 3 crocodiles remained motionless. Then, as the young men reached the clearing's edge, the largest one released a sound. A low rumble that vibrated through the earth itself, felt in the chest rather than heard with ears. Atondo's words echoed. If the crocodiles speak, the ancestors approve. The 3 young men looked at each other, awed, humbled, changed by what they'd witnessed. Let's go home, Agumanu said softly. They turned and entered the forest path, carrying the herbs that would save Manu Idi's life. Behind them, the pools returned to perfect stillness. The forest, having tested them and found them worthy, granted easy passage back. The journey home took about a day, but it felt different now. Conversation flowed, tentative at first, then easier. Stories emerged. Laughter came. Buba asked about the forge, how fire could be controlled, shaped, made to obey. Ongyu asked about hunting, about reading animal signs, about the patience required to track prey through Iduko. Agumanu watched them both, satisfaction in his eyes. The diplomat, the bridge builder, seeing his work bear fruit. They emerged from the forest at dawn on the 3rd day. Adi village waited. It seemed the entire population had gathered at the forest's edge, watching, hoping, fearing. When the 3 young men appeared, a cheer rose. Hands reached out. Voices called their names. The Aku stepped forward. The herbs? Ongyu presented the woven bag. 7 bampwa leaves. Duruka root as much as Shuuva specified. Gathered with respect. Blessed by the crocodiles. Shuuva took the bag reverently, examined the contents, nodded with satisfaction. Perfect. Come, we make the medicine now while they're fresh. The crowd parted, following Shuuva toward Manu Idi's compound. 2 days passed. On the morning of the 3rd day, Manu Idi sat up. His color had returned. His eyes were clear. When he spoke, his voice was weak but steady. I dreamed of crocodiles, and 3 young fools wading into sacred waters. Laughter rippled through the gathered villagers. Not fools, elder, the Aku corrected gently. Men. Manu Idi requested the 3 be brought to him. They came, Ongyu, Agumanu, and Buba, standing together as they had in the forest. The forest spoke to you, Manu Idi said. What did it say? Agumanu answered first. That leadership means listening, to the spirits, to the land, to each other. Ongyu spoke next. That strength comes in many forms. Fire can destroy or create. It's the hand that guides it that matters. Buba was silent for a long moment. Then, that pride goes before a fall. But brothers. He glanced at Ongyu and Agumanu. Brothers catch you when you fall. Tears shone in Mama Amikai's eyes. Even the Aku looked moved. Good, Manu Idi said. Very good. The forest teaches those who listen. You listened. Adi is richer for it. That evening, the village gathered for a celebration. Not a festival, but a quiet acknowledgement. Food was shared. Stories were told. Music played softly. Buba did something unprecedented. He approached Ongyu in front of everyone, extended his hand. The crowd fell silent. At the river, Booba said, voice carrying across the compound. You taught me I wasn't unbeatable. In the forest, you taught me I wasn't alone. I was wrong about you, about everything. If you'll have me, I'd like to be your brother. Angyu gripped his hand firmly. The forest already made us brothers. I'm just glad you finally noticed. Laughter erupted, warm, genuine, healing. The three of them stood together as elders approached, offering blessings, touching their shoulders, speaking proverbs. 3 strands woven together don't break easily. The forest tests, but the ancestors teach. A man alone is prey. Men together are pride. The next morning, Angyu arrived at the forge to find 2 visitors already there. Agumanu sat on his usual stump, grinning, and beside him, looking uncertain but determined, was Booba. Thought I'd learn about fire, Booba said gruffly. If you'll teach me. Agio looked at his son. Angyu nodded. The bellows, Agio said, gesturing. Start there. Steady rhythm. Don't force it. Let the air find its own path. Booba took position at the bellows. Clumsy at first, too aggressive, the coals flaring and dying erratically. Patience, Angyu instructed, demonstrating the rhythm, like tracking an animal. Steady. Consistent. Booba tried again. Better this time. The coals responded, glowing evenly. Agumanu watched, offering occasional advice. The 3 of them fell into a rhythm. Pump and strike, breath and hammer. Outside, village life continued. Women carried water from Iria. Farmers headed to fields. Fishermen checked traps. And walking past the forge, Agabe saw the 3 young men working together. She paused, smiled to her companion. Now that's worth noticing. Inside the forge, smoke rose in a steady column toward the cloudless sky. Agio watched his son work alongside his new brothers and nodded to himself. He said nothing, didn't need to. Some lessons the metal taught. Some lessons life taught. Some lessons the forest taught. And the strongest blades, he knew, were forged from different metals combined. The hammer sang. The bellows breathed. And these 3 strands woven together refused to break. There's more to come from the land of Adi, the mythical land of our ancestors. Subscribe to follow Angyu, Booba, and Agumanu as they navigate various challenges and the mysteries that lie between the sacred waters of Iduko and Iria. What trials await them next? Comment below with your thoughts and your predictions. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and turn on notifications. It means a lot and would go a long way in encouraging this project. Thank you for watching. See you soon.